my voice off, and we should be streaming live from Radio Hall. No. All right, let me get to Facebook. All right, everybody. We are a little early, just making sure we can get everything connected here. Hi, and welcome back. I'm Caroline Beste of the Tao of Horsemanship. This is Everything Horses and More weekly podcast. How's everybody doing? We technically won't be starting until noon. And you know who this lovely woman to my right is? This is Sabrina Arbogast, or to my left. It depends, I guess, on how we're looking at it. All right, well, so today's guest speaker is me. And I think from now on, every month I'm gonna at least have one podcast because there's just so much to talk about. And today, speaking of which, this is gonna be an excellent, they're always excellent, don't get me wrong. I love when we have guest speakers. I think you guys do too. Oh my gosh, everybody has so much to share. And when we share, there's so much to learn, gain, there's wisdom, we can connect. Hi Barb, hi Abigail. So don't worry if you guys can't watch this live. Hi Joanne, hi Jessica, hi ladies. If you can't watch it live, we record these because we're streaming them to Facebook. We record them and put them on my YouTube channel so you can watch the visual and listen as well. So no worries if you can't make it. It's going to be recorded and uploaded to my YouTube channel. So just remember that. All right. So today's topic is a really, it's a great topic for me, and one that I rarely ever dive into just because I don't have the opportunity, but I always get questions about. And this is gaited horses. And Caroline, do you train gaited horses? And do you train a gaited horse similarly or differently than a non-gaited horse? So I'm going to dive into that today. Today's podcast topic is the myths surrounding gaited horses and training them. Because there are a lot of myths, a lot of dogma, and I'm going to debunk a lot of it. And I'm going to try and keep it really simple. Another reason why you guys should definitely watch this podcast, not just listen to it, is because I'm going to be sharing my screen and sharing 2 videos. So the 2 videos, one is going to be me riding. Just yesterday we filmed me riding Callan, one of the gaited horses here. And I'll talk a little bit more about Callan and my history with Callan. And then the main reason why I'm doing this podcast is because one of my YouTube subscribers and podcast listeners, Abby, has been asking me to do a podcast on gaited horses. So I have 2 videos of hers that I'm going to be sharing too. Very quick videos, but we're going to do it'll be a really easy compare and contrast. And we're going to take a look at her horse. And even though it's a different breed of gaited horse, I'm going to talk about that. Really doesn't matter in regards to training. And then we're going to take a look at the gaited horse that I'm riding, Callan. And of course, you all know that Sabrina's here to take questions. So if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to ask. That's going to be awesome. And so great. So yeah. Hi, Cindy. Hey, Rebecca. Awesome. All right. Well, I might as well begin. So I'm going to start with Abby's question to me. Hi, Caroline. It's me again, Abigail. Could you possibly have a podcast regarding gaited horses and developing their movement? I know it's overall the same approach as my mastery membership, how I train horses. My approach, not Abby's, Caroline's approach to non-gaited horses, but their movement is so different. And I personally am working with a 15-year-old standard bred mare who sat for 8 years with no work. I'm working her in small clips like the videos I've attached, but as you can see, she's very choppy, even for a pacer, and unbalanced. So these are going to be great things to talk about. The flip side is that just a short few weeks ago, she was an incredibly nervous, anxious, and spooky ball of nerves more so than in this video, and couldn't give me her mind. And this past weekend, we free lunged, did Liberty work, and she chose to stay with me. I've only had her a very short 4 months, but thanks to your methods, I've managed to gain her trust and develop a deep bond. She also writes, there's so very little information out there about gaited horses and how to develop them. Everyone always thinks she is lame. Thank you as always. So awesome. Yeah, the little bit of information about gaited horses, it is very limited. So when I got back into horses in my mid to late 30s and started to develop my method, as a lot of you already know in my podcast or webinars or YouTube videos, you know, I seriously studied many people for a long periods of time, and wanted to get, you know, the best foundation that I possibly could about biomechanics, about gaited horses, non-gaited horses, you know, everything I could sink my teeth into, so to speak. And gaited horses, there was not a lot of information about gaited horses. And I, as you guys probably have already figured out, I love to learn. I ask a lot of questions, and I don't just absorb one principle or one concept or one school of thought. You know, when I'm getting involved in really learning about something intimately and in depth, you know, I'm also going to grab as much information from various other teachers and instructors about the same principle or concept. So I want to get my brain, you know, I don't want to just study one person. I want to, in the beginning, I wanted to get a feel for what everyone was teaching and what everyone had to teach or say about whatever I was learning. Biomechanics, gaited horses, non-gaited horses, dressage, reining, hunter, liberty, freestyle, you know, you name it. So where I'm headed with all of that is it really blew my mind the way gaited horses were being trained. And the one thing that I learned early on through experience more than anything, it wasn't until many years later, was what I had learned by observation and a process of, you know, just diagnosing and evaluating and questioning it was supported many years later with the fact, as I was meeting more and more professionally trained gaited trainers, you know, they were actually coming, you know, they're coming to my clinics, and you know, they're breeding certain specific gaited horses and bloodlines. And, you know, universally what I had figured out early on my own, but it was validated years later by all of these people, was that gaited horses are naturally weak in the hind end, more so than a non-gaited horse. And we really have to remember that when we're training gaited horses. And so while a gaited horse, you know, one of the things, it doesn't matter what breed they are, you know, one of the traits that a gaited horse has, and again, it doesn't matter what breed, is that it equally distributes its weight amongst all 4 limbs, where a non-gaited horse is heavier on the forehand. Most of our non-gaited. Now, we do have specific breeds. The Iberian horses like the Lusitano and the Andalusian specifically are, they're conformationally designed a little differently as a non-gaited horse, meaning they're conformationally designed to have a higher angle to their shoulder and to load their hind end more evenly. So they're not as heavy on the forehand as most of our other non-gaited horses. But just in general, non-gaited horses are heavier in the forehand. And that's why we're always trying to develop the hind end to be the main motor, you know, the caboose, the power, the engine of the horse, where the horse loads all of its balance and its strength and its movement as it moves forward. And so gaited horses, when you think about conformationally, just generalizing them across the board, you know, they their weight bearing is more evenly distributed amongst all 4 legs, and that's why they gait. And I'm not a specialist in specific gaited breeds as far as telling you what type of gait they're doing. You're not going to get that from me today. But I am a specialist in knowing horses and knowing movement and how to develop it for gaited or non-gaited. So I will be able to help you, all of you, with that tremendously. So you've got to start from somewhere. So that's why I'm bringing up wrapping your brain around how a gaited horse is, you know, designed conformationally without getting into the specifics of the gait. So that's why the movement is smoother, so to speak. And that's why a lot of people, a lot of my clients over the years who have had back injuries or all sorts of discs, issues with their spines, what have you, they will move or transition from a non-gaited horse to a gaited horse because movement is just a lot smoother, so to speak. But like Abby's question, actually the movement isn't as smooth as it should be. And a lot of the myths out there, the way they train these gaited horses, there's got to be a specific saddle. There's got to be a specific rider position. There's got to be a specific bit. All of these things have to be taken in consideration. And those were the things I was questioning when I came back to horses, and I'd never worked with gaited horses. And I was like, well, why? Why is that so? You know, and really when we are designing apparatus or equipment for horses, it should be equipment, excuse me, let me fix this. It should be equipment that helps the horse's movement, period. It should not be equipment that is designed for a specific breed or equipment that is going to be generalized, meaning like I hate tie downs. You know, we should not have tie downs. We should not be using draw reins when we lunge and any kind of mechanical device that forces the horse into a frame, so to speak. We should never be forcing a horse into anything. You've got to come from it in a way that everything you're doing is naturally helping the horse to improve and build and develop, and as naturally and as organically as possible. And it does take some study. It does. You got to know what you're doing. And so for the gaited horse, one of the things I noticed just by studying their bodies, and this is all gaited horses, from Tennessee Walkers to Missouri Foxtrotters to saddlebreds to standardbreds to Rocky Mountain, Kentucky Mountain, Pasofino, minus, we're not going to include the Peruvian Paso right now. But all of these other, and I might have missed a few non-gaited, like Icelandic and whatnot, but the ones that I named, and I've worked with all of these guys. So the ones the primary non-gaited breeds that I just named, primary meaning most people have Tennessee Walkers, most people have Rocky Mountain, Kentucky Mountain, for their dispositions, their versatility. A lot of people have saddlebreds. Some people get the standardbreds off the track, the big pacers. What did I say? Missouri Foxtrotter. Anyway, when you look at their bodies and you compare their conformation to a non-gaited horse, let's say quarter horse. I mean, there's a big difference. You take a quarter horse's nice apple hiney and put that next to a gaited horse, and they ain't got no ass. There ain't nothing there. Ding, 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 ding. I'm like, wait a minute. So what does that mean? That means that the horse doesn't have a lot of strength in their hind end. And if you don't have strength, you're not going to have balance. Strength has to come first. And then we've got to look into creating the level of stretch and tracking. We have to create other things to help balance, to help develop a more balanced horse. But you've got to start somewhere. And you've got to start with hind end strength, always, whether you're gaited or non-gaited. So if you just mentally visualize your gaited horse or a gaited horse's hind end, you're looking at it from the rear. Next to, we're just going to use a good opposite, a quarter horse. There's a big difference. Let's take an Arabian. Here's a non-gaited horse. And I've had plenty of Arabs, and put their butts, sometimes even a thoroughbred, up against a quarter horse. Now, why am I bringing up the quarter horse? I could be bringing up an Andalusian. Either way, I mean, Andalusians and Lusitanos, when I've worked with them, I mean, they're spit out. I mean, as soon as they drop to the ground and they're born, they can basically pee off in like 2 weeks. But as soon as they get a little bit of strength, but they don't have a lot of strength. That's the problem. And so even with the big time well-bred, you know, PRE and Andalusians that I've worked with, and the Lusitanos, really well-bred for their movement and their mind, you know, they still need, they might have the balance for the Piaf in these upper level because it's so well-bred into them. They just don't have that strength or that balance yet. So that's what we're looking at with gaited horses across the board. And so in my work, questioning this and working with so many gaited horses, and I know exactly what, I'm going to show you Abigail's horse, and I know exactly what it feels like to ride all of these different gaited breeds and feel a, how do I phrase it, Sabrina? I say it with any horse, like when a horse isn't balanced, it feels like 5 different body parts moving separately. It's so disjunct. Yeah, no, the pogo stick's different, but that's more of a trot. Oh. But it's just the body's going everywhere, right? And when you're sitting on especially a gaited horse, because of the movement, the swing of the movement more, it's supposed to be smoother, but then you've got the head up high and you've got everything just, it's not a very through, there's nothing through the movement, as we refer to it in dressage. You want throughness. Excuse me, and throughness comes from the hind end, the power, and it comes through the body and through the top line and out the nose. And so if you ride with a bit, and I understand why they want the contact. You want to feel that contact through the throughness. I get that, but I also don't train with bits, and I teach my horses self-carriage. So basically you should be able to do everything bridleless, but the horse can do naturally, right? So I'm not looking for that level of throughness where I can feel it in my hands with the contact, but that's where dressage is always headed to, that you want to feel that movement. And of course you want to be able to play with that movement and have that elasticity, but it's a throughness. That means the whole body is unified and working very balanced and very collected. And so that's what we're missing in our gaited horses, big time. And again, the old traditional mindset, so much of the dogma that still exists in training gaited horses is very similar to training non-gaited horses. Well, just trot and canter the piss out of them. Just keep running them and they'll get the strength. Yeah, but if the horse is moving the wrong way and using its body incorrectly, then you are developing all the wrong things. And so what happens often with the gaited horse is you've got this mindset, well, just got to have this kind of bit, long shank usually, and it's a curved bit, really long shank. And, you know, I don't care if it's a Tennessee Walker, a saddlebred who have high headsets, to, you know, a Rocky Mountain's going to have a much lower headset like a quarter horse. But even these higher Missouri Foxtrotter, all these higher headset gaited horses, do you realize they can all relax and actually have a very low headset naturally? And so what's happening is they're being trained a certain way, and it's not good for them. And they're being made by the way the rider is supposed to sit on the horse with his feet out in front of them in the saddle. Your feet are out in front of you. That's not correct riding. Your feet should be underneath of you. and relaxed. So you're putting pressure on, you're sitting back a little, you got your hands held high, and you got this big bit and big shank on this horse, and you're gating the hell out of them. And that's what happens to a lot of these gated horses, and it ruins them because it's all go, go, go. They're not ready. They're not mentally balanced yet, which means they can't self-regulate the nervous system. When they speed up, horses naturally produce adrenaline. If the horse doesn't feel in control of that, because adrenaline's for fight or flight. And so if they're constantly producing adrenaline and they're like, what am I supposed to be afraid of? There's a lot of PTSD that happens to that nervous system. And so they're emotionally not balanced, and then physically they're not balanced. And so it's a double whammy. I can't tell you, I would say 99% of all the gated horses I've worked with over the years, they've all been nut jobs because of the way they've been trained. Nobody's done it correctly. And they get on these horses and they just ride the piss out of them. They gate the hell out of them. And so all these gated horses know is to go. And they go like this with their heads held high and their heads bobbing and the whites of their eyes showing, their nostrils flaring, they're breathing heavy, the movement's quick and tight and choppy. And it's choppy because they're not balanced, because all 5 body parts are not moving as one. And what are those 5 body parts? You've got the hind end, you've got the midsection, you've got the shoulder, you've got the neck, and then you've got the head. And all 5 are just not working together. And so we're going to see that when we look at Abby's horse. And so how do we change that? Everything has to do with developing a hind end. That's where it begins. And I'm going to, before I get into looking at these videos, do we have any questions? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to read a good article that I picked up from Horse and Rider, 10 gated horse myths busted. And most of this I agree with. So, and if I don't, I will let you know. So this article, our experts counter the myths about smooth gated horses with 10 fact-based truths. I love it. The myths and misunderstandings about smooth gated horses abound. Here we'll bust 10 common myths taken from real questions posed by horse owners from around the country. We'll explain why each assumption is wrong and why you should consider a gated horse for trail riding. Myth number 1, smooth gaits are artificial. The walk, the trot, and the canter are normal gaits for normal horses. I don't like that, normal horses. Ooh, let's just say they're normal gaits for non-gated horses. Gated horses bother me. Well, this is somebody writing in. Gated horses bother me because their smooth gaits are man-made and artificial. Oh, I see where this is coming from. Sorry, guys, I read it wrong. So let me start over. This isn't the writer of this article. This article has taken in questions from around the country. So one of the questions or comments is, the walk, the trot, and the canter are normal gaits for normal horses. Hate that. Gated horses bother me because their smooth gaits are man-made and artificial. I'm into natural horsemanship and I want my horse to enjoy our trail rides. I could never ride a horse that was forced to perform an artificial gait. I know where this person's coming from though. It has to do with what I was just talking about, the way people are taught to ride these gated horses. And it's go, go, go. And the horses look like they're out of their mind. Mm-hmm. And they're not balanced, like when we see Abby's horses, and it looks horrible and painful. So, so this person needs to be educated. Busted, the author writes, relax. You can safely enjoy gated horses, natural horsemanship, and trail riding. These 3 things go together very well. The show ring and the trail are 2 very different places. Good trail gaits aren't created by special tack or riding techniques. They're bred into the horses and brought out by sensible, sympathetic training. So I do absolutely agree that we breed our horses for specific traits. However, 99% of the gated trainers I've met I'll just rephrase that. 99% of the gated horses I've worked with have been so messed up. Let's put it that way. Really messed up. And when you are getting a horse like some of the Pasafinos I've worked with, that number one, they have way too much brio. So they've been almost like a puppy mill inbred. So they're just out of their minds naturally. Brio is spirit. And with Pasafinos, you want a lot of brio because it's the brio, they say, that brings out the expression in the Pasafinos movement. And Pasafinos specifically are made and trained to whatever the gait is, I can't remember, but on a plank, it's a plank of wood or like a bridge of wood, because they want to hear that echo. It's a specific gait in the Pasafino, but 99% of the training is horrifying. And I have a rescue Paso that I've had for many years that I got here in Ocala through word of mouth. He was retired, basically put out to pasture with an older Pasafino they were both being starved. They wanted me to take the older one. And this guy came with papers, very well bred. His name is Sabroso. That's his registered name. He's still here with me. I think he's 19 or 20 this year. And he was a former champion horse. I mean, they gave me all of the certification and he was destroyed. I mean, you couldn't even walk in. He hid in the corner of his stall. He had definitely been abused. I'm not talking the typical abuse, you guys, where people just hit the horses, but the typical abuse where they hit the horses with whips and all sorts of mechanical devices to get that fire, to get that brio. So it's not slow, sympathetic training at all. It's forced training. It's very harsh. It's very mechanical. I mean, I know some really horrible things that have been done to a lot of horses in the name of training. It's not just the gaited. So I get where this woman is coming from, and that's why I'm so pleased to be doing this podcast, and also to be and Abigail sending me the videos, because her horse is going to look like so many of them, and it doesn't look natural. And as she said, some people think that her mare is lame. Now, I don't know, I'm not there. Even in this video, I can't really tell. But I can surmise that as soon as this mare gets more balanced, the horse will be through, right? The movement will be through and unified. All right, myth number 2, gaited horses are high-headed nutcases. Yay, see, told you. They're not, but we make them that way. This person writes in, I want a quiet, gentle horse, not a high-headed, crazy one. I can tell by looking at those heads in the air that gaited horses are nutcases. And that's because people make them that way. That's what I'm trying to say. Busted, the author writes, actually, most gaited breeds are exceptionally gentle and sensible, very far from being nutcases. It's true that many gaited breeds are naturally up-headed, as are some of the supposedly non-gaited breeds, such as Morgans. Yeah. Or Arabians, depending on the bloodline, or Lusitanos, or Andalusians, or Lipizans. It just depends on the bloodlines, or Frisians. Look at a Frisian. But a Frisian, all horses can relax, though, you guys. And when they're mentally and physically relaxed, like they are when they're out grazing or with their buddies in the pasture, their heads are low. Every horse's head is low. When they are what, guys? The magic word is relaxed. And when they feel safe and they are calm and comfortable. So now we have 2 key things here that I'm bringing up about gaited horses and all horses. Balance, hind end and balance. Where's the hind end? Strength and balance. Maybe that's 2 right there. And the third is going to be the level of relaxation for all horses. And this person backs it up, the author. If you look at the silhouettes of horses standing in a pasture, you'll notice differences in the way their necks are set on. Some breeds, such as a quarter horse and thoroughbreds, are less high-headed, with their necks appearing to come forward out of their backs. Other breeds, such as the Tennessee walking horse, American saddlebred, Pasafino, and Icelandic, Frisian, which is not a gaited horse, but they have a higher necks that are set on higher and carried more upright. And some riders prefer one type, and some prefer the other. So what I want to add, though, is that every horse that I've worked with, and I've worked with just about everything, you guys, and multiple types of horses in a specific breed, they can all relax though. And I don't care if they're built with a higher headset, they all can relax and they all will enjoy relaxing. And the truest, correct way to develop the level of balance and throughness is through a relaxed posture in your horse. And so if you look at me and I'm going to hollow out my back and tighten my shoulders and raise my neck up like a horse right now. So I'm going to have a U-neck, this muscle here on the horse, we call that a U-neck. I'm going to raise my head up, tighten up. Now, if I walked around like this is a really tight and uncomfortable position for me. And this would be the horse. So think what it's like to ride that. And so the movement's going to be really choppy and short strided because I have so much brace in my body right now that I am stopping or inhibiting through movement. And so if you just took me as a human and put me down on all fours like this, it's going to be really hard for my hind legs to stretch and move the way they're supposed to move. My whole back's going to be tight, my shoulders and my neck. And so anytime there's brace in the rider or the horse, if the horse has brace in their body, it's going to make for a really crappy, choppy ride. That's where the pogo stick comes in, Sabrina, because a rider is going to be like this, jamming up and down. If the rider is tight and braced, they're going to create tension in the horse as well. So relaxation is so key to all of this. And even if your gaited horse has or your non-gaited, like your Friesian, has a higher headset, it doesn't make it right. Naturally, if they have a higher headset, you don't want to be riding that. Myth number 3. Here we go. You'll need a long shanked bit. Rider writes in, I just bought my first gaited horse and I'd like to take him out on the trail. However, I don't have the right kind of bit. I know you have to use a long shanked bit. Well, that's what we all see. And keep the pressure on all the time to keep a gaited horse gaiting. Oh, I love this. I've heard this so many times. Plus, it seems like the kind of riding you have to do would be way too much work on a long trail ride. Busted. A gaited horse does not need a special bit or heavy rein pressure. Then why do people do it? Harsh bits and long shanks are bad trail bits for any horse. They're bad bits, period. It's too easy for those long shanks to get caught in brush or on branches. As for pressure, that just makes the ride uncomfortable for you and your horse. A good gaited horse will gait in a snaffle, a side pull, or a halter and 2 lead ropes. And many of them will work happily in all gaits on a slack rein. In fact, gaited horses can be taught to neck rein, which will make your trail rides that much easier. All horses can learn the same things, you guys. They're horses, just like people. We can all learn. And each horse is an individual, so some are smarter than others. But, oh my gosh, where does this stuff come from? Constant bit pressure won't help your horse's natural gait, but people are taught this. I mean, these are great questions. I've been asked these and asked them myself all these years when I get these gaited horses and the way people are taught to ride. Where does this shit come from? Who makes these rules? It's just like peanut rolling in Western Pleasure. I'll never forget Jack Brainerd bringing that up at one of our advanced horsemanship flying lead change reining clinics years ago. And we all were like, learning flying lead changes, and it was raining. It was not Western Pleasure. And Western Dressage was just, or Cowboy Dressage, this is back in 2006, was just starting to be coming out in the forefront. And Jack was actually friends with Eitan Halkami from Canada, who actually got his Morgan horses accredited through the FEI for Western Dressage. Long story. That's when Jack first started getting interested in Western Dressage. I've written articles on the difference between Western Pleasure and Western Dressage. And Western Pleasure is horrible for horses. It is horrible how they're trained. And Jack would say, and Jack was a judge, a breeder, you know, became a world famous clinician, author, you name it. And Jack would say it always happens because of the judge. It's so political. He's like, when I was judging and doing the futurity and breeding these horses and starting these young reining horses, he's like, you never wanted a reining horse's head set to be lower than their withers. He's like, and now, and he was working with Clinton Anderson at the time too, and none of us liked Clinton. And Jack was constantly telling, I was with Jack for a month, so he was constantly telling us how, you know, he was going out, not a month solid, but a month throughout that year. And he was going out there and working with Clinton Anderson, and Clint was, he'd call it rubbernecking, you know, was totally destroying the cartilage in the horse's neck by over bending them and bending the horse down to its knees, and then, you know, tying it down to the ground and spurring the hell out of it. And it became a fad. Because some judge either, you know, how do you become a judge? When you start winning, when you start training your horses and winning, then all of a sudden you're asked to be a judge. And so it became someone's way of training that then became the latest craze or the newest fad in training. And Jack's like, that is not how we were taught in the 50s to bring these horses, these ranch horses along and into futurity and reining. So I mean, I understand how this stuff happens. It's just infuriating that people accept it. It's like, what are we, robots? You know, and then we treat our horses like robots. We're not thinking, we're not questioning people. We're just allowing people to set a new way or a new rule. It's like our politics today. Don't get me started on that. Keep sex, religion, and politics out of your podcast.
Yes.
Okay. Back to the myth number 3. So constant bit pressure won't help your horse's natural gait. With any horse, gait depends partly on genetics. Yes. Partly on conformation, which is genetics. Yes. And partly on the horse's comfort level. Very good point. Watch your horse when he's turned out in the pasture, and you'll discover that he can perform all of his gaits with no bridle at all. Beautifully put. I love this article. Myth number 4. You'll need a special saddle. Here we go again. Just to make money. My new Tennessee walking horse mare seems to be okay with her tack, but we're out on the trails for hours at a time, practically every day. I worry about making her sore because I'm using my sister's old dressage saddle, and I know I need a special saddle made for gaited horses. Busted. If your mare's saddle allows her to move easily and comfortably, everything is fine. It doesn't matter whether it's a good dressage saddle, an endurance saddle, an all-purpose saddle, or a trail saddle. If it fits your horse, you're good to go. Everything's a big sham there. Yep, I've met plenty of saddle maker and plenty client who had to have an expensive, handmade, well-made saddle for their gaited horse that only their gaited horse could use because it was a gaited horse saddle. So let me tell you something. My beautiful dapple gray, white, 20-year-old quarter horse mare, Sundance, who's very downhill, conformationally. You could have put a gaited saddle on her, because I ride with a bareback pad, and when I'm riding Sundance, probably 3 times I have to get off and adjust that bareback pad because it slides, not forward, it actually, and she's downhill, it actually slides back and off her wither, because even though she's downhill, she's a big, powerful mover, and she uses that caboose of hers. And so when she sits down on her hocks, which are ruined now, by the way, she sits down by arthritis on her hocks, then where do I and the pad go? We get shifted back. Wow, you know, I've said this before, people get really comfortable not questioning things and not being intelligent and just allowing other people to decide what should be done. And it really infuriates me, especially with horses. In life, it does generally, but with horses, because it's such an honor. We should be so honored we should just be so honored that our horses allow us to ride them, and that they allow us to do the things we do, and that they choose us, hopefully they choose us We should be so honored. And with that honor, you know, we should really be mindful of what's in their best interest, period, not our best interest. And so when I hear someone say, well, I'm riding my Tennessee Walker for hours daily, you're gonna totally break your horse down. You know, I now have my second quarter horse, my beloved quarter horse Sundance, with arthritis, and I'm mortified. And you all who know me know what happened to Smokey. And because of Smokey's onset with bone spurs many years ago, I just backed off of training completely with all of my horses, and especially my younger ones. It was just a big light bulb that went off. And some of it can be genetics, you guys. Absolutely. Sundance is not the best built quarter horse. She's beautiful, but I've really learned a lot from her specifically on how to develop movement for any horse, because she was so challenged. She really should be a halter horse with her build, you know, those big cheeks, chipmunk cheeks, and being downhill. And yet she's my was my third level schoolmaster in dressage, with Piaffe and everything. And she could jump 4 feet. But because I didn't learn these things early on in time, and she was very young, I am sure that I've created a lot of this arthritis in both of them. And I don't want anybody, that's going to, till I die, as long as I'm doing this work, I'm going to be out there advocating on everything I am, taking it slowly, allowing your horses to grow. Both Sundance and Smokey were young when I got them. Sundance was 3, Smokey was 4, turning 5, and I didn't know what I know today. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to get back into horses. I'm just going to work with these guys every day. You know, well, I didn't make them like run them to death, but they should not have been worked with every day. And it's also quality, not quantity. And if you're going to go out on trail rides, this is what I have to say to all of you that want to do recreational riding. You better prepare your horse for it emotionally and physically. Because every time your horse moves without relaxation, moves without balance, you are jeopardizing the longevity and the soundness of your horse, period. Absolutely. That is the science of it. You don't see wild horses running like this. They are lazy. Horses are lazy by nature. It is built into them instinctually to conserve energy and to save what they have for fight or flight, for real danger. That means they're not supposed to be running with us every day, or jumping, or carrying our bodies for hours every day on trails and endurance. They're not supposed to be doing this. Yes, a question.
Yes, Abigail.
Hi, Abby.
Maybe for after viewing the videos, but I don't know, I think it's a really good question. But can a gaited horse do fine lead changes in dressage work?
Yes.
I wonder, due to typical lead changes and movement being in the diagonals and the gaited horse being the same side, will it be an entirely different appearance and or cadence? Will they even be able to transition their weight appropriately without putting strain or stress on joints, ligaments? Not sure I worded the question right for what I'm saying.
So Abby, that's great. And just hang in there, because when I show you the video of the gaited horse that I'm riding, you're going to see him trot, and you're going to see a 2-beat trot. You're going to see him gait, and you're also going to see him, I don't know if Callan picked up a canter.
Yes, he did.
He picked up a canter. So you're going to see him do the gaited canter, and you're going to see him do a real non-gaited canter. So the question is gaited horses are just like every other horse. They're versatile, and you can teach a gaited horse how to do the 2-beat trot and how to do a canter. They can all do flying lead changes. They can all jump. They can all do the Piaffe. They can do their horses. They will, because of how they're bred as a gaited horse, that meaning they're bred to gait, that is what they will choose first. And so I will be getting to all of this. Once I get through these myths, I'm going to talk about how you develop a gaited horse's movement, and how we can totally change your horse, Abby. When we see her in the video, we can totally change her movement so that she looks like Callan. I don't care what breed she is. They can all look like Callan. That's the point. And Abby, I've got a question for you. Are you a Mastery membership student? Because if you are not, that program will teach you everything. Teach you everything. It's for gated and non-gated horses. So, and if you are, then we might need a coaching call so I can walk you through some of the program and show you, you know, specifically identify. But yeah, anyway, I'll get to that. Okay. So myth number 5, the saddle should sit mid-back. So again, this person's having a hard time keeping the horse's saddle in the middle of his back. After riding about an hour, the saddle comes forward. But I know gated horses need to have their saddles way back in the middle of their backs. Now, I know for a fact that this, yes, I've heard this before, and this has been, again, somebody came up with it because it was their way of handling that movement and an ill-fitting saddle. If the saddle fits well, guys, and you got to know the horse's movement, if it sits well, it's not going to move. When Sundance's bareback pad slides, it's because I never keep my pads on very tight. I never saddle my horses tight. I can always get two hands in between my girth and my horses, even with a saddle on, because I don't put all that weight in my stirrups, the weight's in my seat. So I'm a very balanced rider. So God, there's so many myths out there. So busted. This is a bad habit born in the show ring. Yes. Again, somebody said somebody was winning and this is the way they won and they look like this, and then everybody starts mirroring them. Placing the saddle far back puts you in a position to strain your horse's back. Gated horses are just like other horses. They have the same skeletal structure and the same muscle, but they do move differently. So there is this shimmying that's going on. It is different though. But they are saying, the author is saying that the saddle, if it fits well, and I do agree with that, you're not going to have a problem. So again, it comes back to saddle fitting. Myth number 6, your horse will need special shoeing. I love this one. My farrier has always done a good job with my non-gated horses, but I'll need to get a new farrier for my new smooth gated horse. He needs special shoeing to help him gait. Busted. Whether your horse wears metal shoes, hoof boots, or goes barefoot, he needs the services of a good farrier. The basics of trimming and shoeing are not breed dependent. A good farrier will look at an individual horse's conformation, gaits, and movement, then trim or shoe the horse's hooves according to the natural angles or what the horse needs. Gosh, I love this. I've heard all of this myself. Myth number 7, gated horses aren't sure-footed. Oh my. I like the idea of a smooth gated horse, but not for trail riding. Those high stepping horses just aren't sure-footed enough to be safe. Busted. This is a double myth. First, a good gated horse will be a smooth moving horse, not a high stepping one. Second, a good gated horse will be very sure-footed and will handle even the tough trails in style. Don't buy into the notion that gated horses are all eye-rolling, leg-flinging, high-stepping creatures. Well, but they sure look like that, don't they, when you see them out trail riding and in the show ring. There are quite a few working ranches where gated horses spend their days stepping over logs, walking through water, and carrying their riders smoothly up and down hills and over all kinds of terrain and in all kinds of weather. Myth number 8, purebred quarter horses don't gait. My quarter horse gelding does a sort of cross between a walk, Smokey did too, and a trot. I was asked if Smokey was gated when I would do performances as a clinician. When we were on trails, it's comfortable for both of us. So I just go ahead and let him do it. I don't show, so it doesn't really matter, but I guess his papers must be fake since he wouldn't gait if he were a purebred quarter horse. Busted. Many members of non-gated breeds, such as quarter horses, thoroughbreds, and Arabians and Morgans, can walk, trot, canter, and perform one or more trail gaits. Pretty cool, isn't it, guys? If your horse has an extra gear in the form of a comfortable trail gait, relax and enjoy, don't worry. Your horse's papers are probably his own. So Yeah, Smokey could actually gait at shuffle at the trot and the canter, just like Callan. Very, very, very rarely. And I often would think, and when he was younger and I didn't know what was going on, that he was a liver disease survivor. And when I brought him back from New Bolton in Philadelphia hospital, and he wasn't even supposed to make it. He had lost 100 pounds in 2 weeks. He was, you know, he literally was dragging his hind end, and he had shaved his hooves, completely squared them off, because he had some neurological damage, and he was never supposed to. It was similar to EPM. He was never even supposed to move any better than that, let alone, he was at the age of 5, let alone would I be able to ride him. And while he was still on many meds for many months, when he returned home to help his liver rejuvenate, that's when the neurological damage literally left his hind end and went to his esophagus, his trachea. He ended up having a partially paralyzed trachea. So he ended up regaining his hind end. And so I was never sure, when I started to develop him, work with him, train him, develop him, that movement was just a weakness. But it carried all the way through to his later years. Very interesting. Myth number 9, trotting ruins smooth gait. Sometimes I like to trot my gaited horse on the trail. I've seen him trot in the pasture, so I know he can do it, but I've heard that if you let a gaited horse trot, it ruins his smooth gaits. Oh my God. So before I read the busted, which I haven't, I just read these questions because whether I like the busted or not, I would have answered these, which I'm doing anyway. So, oh my God, that is my number one way of developing gaited horses, is through the 2-beat diagonal trot. Yes, yes, yes. The reason why you're going to be told with your gaited horse that you're going to ruin his gait by allowing him to trot is because he's going to be wanting to go either in a 2-beat trot, or he's going to want to gait. And hardcore gaited horse owners don't ever want their horses to do anything but gait. Okay, so you are totally going to be frowned upon if you decide to trot your horse or develop the canter of a non-gaited horse. You're going to totally be frowned upon, but you have to understand the lack of wisdom, total arrogance and ignorance of these gaited people that are trying to impress upon you how wrong it is to teach your horse anything other than their gaits. It doesn't have to be that way. A horse is so trainable and smart. And if you know how to develop the trot and then the gait, and you've got a clear cue system, the horse is going to know when you're asking for a trot and when you're asking for the horse to gait, which I'm going to show you when I show you me riding Callan. Oh my God. Busted. Trotting is a natural gait for most horses and is good for their backs, balance, and muscular development. Versatile gaited horses are quite capable of performing gaits that aren't in their capsule breed description. If your horse walks, trots, and canters in the pasture, there's no reason he can't walk, trot, and canter under saddle. Go ahead and trot your horse. Encourage him to use his belly muscles. Yes, yes, yes. Lift and stretch his back and reach forward and down with his head and neck. And that pretty much, you guys, is how I develop all horses, including gaited horses. They all learn the longitudinal stretch. They all learn how to track up, relax their top line, stretch into the movement. And like Pilates, the more we lengthen, we strengthen. The more we lengthen, the more we strengthen. Number 10, myth. Gaited horses aren't true athletes. My God, where the hell did that come from? Gaited horses are pretty to watch, but they're just for shows and parades. They're not useful for real work. Busted. Oh my God. I've worked cows with gaited horses. I've done trail clinics, taught them dressage. They all know how to jump. Are you kidding me? They're horses. They can all do the same things. They're just known particularly for a specific gait. And gaited horses, by far, when you go trail riding, a gaited horse can last a lot longer than a non-gaited horse. So let's talk about this real quick. It goes back to the cowboy days when they had ranches. And why do you think the quarter horse's jog trot was developed? So if they didn't have a gaited horse, which they would prefer on the ranches, because they could go a lot farther and faster when a horse gaited compared to a non-gaited horse's walk. And so if they had a non-gaited horse and they tried to keep up with a gaited horse, the non-gaited horse would be trotting big time or even loping to keep up with the gaited horse. So the ranchers developed the jog trot in their quarter horses, their ranch horses. And that's that little tiny trot that quarter horses are so well known for, especially in the show ring, because they can cover a lot more ground a lot faster without exhausting themselves. Oh my God, this is just intelligent, common sense, people. So yeah, gaited horses by far can outlast any non-gaited horse on a trail, I'll tell you, or out on a ranch. That is fabulous. Okay, we have any questions?
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead to my screen sharing here. And oh yeah, that's awesome, Dorothy. I'm just looking at what some people are saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, Abigail, there are so many myths, my dear. And I'm hoping that I'm clearing these myths up for a lot of you. You know, again, the three things four things. Horses are horses, okay? Just like people are people, all right? You have smarter ones, not so smart ones, sweeter ones, not so sweet ones. But the point is horses learn. They all learn, okay? And gaited horses are bred specifically for the ability to gait. You're not going to see that in non-gaited horses, except for exceptions like Smoky and the breeds that they talked about. So predominantly, let's just look at it this way. Gaited horse can do everything a non-gaited horse can do, and then some. The then some is they can gait, but they can still jump. They can work ranches, work cattle, phenomenal on the trail. The way, depending on their breed, like the Rocky and the Kentucky Mountain horses, they are like the quarter horse, well known for their temperaments and their easygoing, really sure-footed. They've got really big feet. And that's something I want to mention about horses in general. As long as your horse has got big ass hooves, you've got a sure-footed horse. Physically, now mentally, the horse has to be calm and thinking to also be a safe, sure-footed horse. So, physically, the bigger the hoof, the more sure-footed they are. That's a truth, you guys. But even then, if the horse isn't thinking and isn't paying attention, then you're not going to have a really reliable, safe horse on the trails. If that makes sense. So the only thing that separates gaited horses from all other horses is the fact that they can gait. Let's just leave it at that. So that means all gaited horses can do what non-gaited horses do, including trot, canter, piaffe, jumping, dressage. Remember, they don't have a lot of hind end strength. So that's why you don't see gaited horses in the show ring when it comes to hunter or jumpers. And gaited horses, except for Tennessee Walkers, gaited horses are not a big breed. And I mean, I've worked with some 17-hand Tennessee Walkers. Tennessee Walkers and Missouri Foxtrotters, of all the gaited breeds, those two breeds can have two very different types of horses. I've seen Tennessee Walkers that have been long and stringy and like 17 plus hands, and I've seen them smaller, around 15.2, and built like quarter horses. I've also seen Missouri Foxtrotters built really small and compact, like a little Arab, and I've also seen them very tall. And yet they're Missouri Foxtrotters, but they look very different. And the same, you have to look at the head. A lot of these guys just look at the heads. That's one of the most prominent, besides the type of gaiting that they do, it's physically, it's the most prominent feature on a gaited horse that's going to distinguish them as far as breeds. You know, Tennessee Walkers have a specific face, saddlebreds, standardbreds, Missouris, Pastos, Peruvian. Oh God, they're gorgeous. Yeah, they're all in Rocky Mountains. They all have a specific type of body conformation, but face, head. Okay, let's go ahead and share these videos. Okay, here we go. So we're going to take a look at Abigail's video first. And she has 2 videos. I'm going to take a look at what we see here.
Good.
Hold on for 1 second and let me see if I can move my screen down. Yeah, there we go. So we can see the top of the horse. Okay, so I'm going to stop it when I can like this, just so that we can look at top line here, because I'm going to do a little evaluation. Abigail, you're going to get obviously some free consultation here. And so, you know, overall, I also want to mention something conformationally with all horses. It doesn't matter whether they're gaited or not. Anytime you have a high tail set, you're going to have usually a horse that hollows out and has a high head set. It's just conformationally natural. A horse with a lower tail set is going to use their hind end better, and that means that their top line is going to be more round. We're going to look at Callan after this, and they're going to relax. See where my arrow's going? They're going to relax and have a lower head set. Now, while this body, you can't change bone, obviously. You can't change a horse's bone structure. You can change their muscle. And so you can change the conformation of a horse. I'll never forget Richard Shrake, one of the most well-known clinicians in the world. And when I was a budding clinician and, you know, started out, and I remember listening to him do a talk, and he had a bunch of different horses at the Harrisburg World Expo, Horse World Expo one year. And he was talking about conformation and how you can't change a horse's conformation. And no, you can't change their bone structure. Absolutely not. But you can change their movement to a point, because you can change their muscling and you can change the way that they carry themselves. And so one of the things, Abigail, you're going to want to notice, and you're not going to be able to do this on your own. So if it, honestly, you have to learn the art of lunging. And I teach the art of lunging and the biomechanics in the mastery membership. So is she a student of the program?
No, she's not a student of the program, but are you playing the video yet? Or are you still on?
You don't see the video?
We are right here.
Oh, booger. Hold on, guys. I got to get my screen. Thank you, love. Let me go back to now. There we go. No, I'm not. So you guys will look right now. Thank you, Sabrina. Okay, now you guys will see it. I never get this screen sharing right. You'll see it now. So here's my arrow again. Can you guys see it above, right where her tail is, where it meets her top of her flank? My white arrow?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so high tail set. She's very heavy on her forehand. Can you see that? How she's downhill. She's got a hollow, and this was a pacer, and she sat for what, 8 years? So this is not a riding horse. She's an ex-trotter. I had one too, that my dad and I made into a riding horse. Okay, so see, conformationally, she has this dip above her wither, short neck, thick bottom neck muscle. We call this the U neck. That's a horse that carries, you'll see it when she moves, carries her head really high and hollows out her back. And that means her tail's really high. So what you want to see is where my arrow is now by her hiney, you want to see a tail coming here, down. So when a tail is lower, that naturally means the horse is using their body better and they're sitting more back on their hind end and rounding their top line. Therefore, they are relaxing their neck. Follow my arrow and the head comes down here. So you'll see it on Callan. You'll see more. So this is stuff when you are observing and learning your horse and the way they move, or you're assessing a horse for the first time, you got to really take a look at the way the horse is moving. And that's a baseline of information. Now we can change this. We can change the way she carries herself. So I totally disagree with Richard Shrake, and maybe we could have had that discussion and he might have agreed with me. You can't change conformationally the bone structure. Absolutely not. But you can change the way the horse uses their body. So let's just watch.
Girl, trot.
I'm going to see if I can mute your voice. I do not believe in voice commands at all. You don't have the whole horse. So let's just, so she's walking. I think you asked her to trot. When you ask her to trot, her tail's high. There's no way when that tail is tight and high, it's going to tighten the whole top line. And now she's got that indentation. Let's just watch her move. So this is what I call all 5 body parts all over the place. Let's watch that again. It's disjuncted. Disjuncted, I think that's a word. Or I made one up.
Disjointed.
Disjointed, thank you. So she's all over the place. She's tripping, slowing down, speeding up. She's unbalanced, that's why. And horses will trip when they're not paying attention. So they'll trip when they're unconfident and freezing up and tightening the body. That means they're not lifting, so they trip. Or she's just really unbalanced because she's fast, she slows down, she's all over the place. And so asking a horse that doesn't have the strength or balance at the trot to trot is not the way to do it. You got to start at the walk, and everything's about the walk. And when the walk gets really perfected, then you'll take that new knowledge for the horse and you at the walk. You'll take that new way of using the body into the trot, and you'll work in and out of the trot until you can work at the trot. So if you keep trotting her which is old traditional dogma, if you keep trotting her in hopes that she's going to get stronger and more balanced and more comfortable and more confident, she might, all of those things, she might mostly get more comfortable, and not speed up and not slow down, but you're not teaching her correctly, because right now she's just doing whatever she can to manage. And in this situation, she's not using her body correctly. And so she's just going to learn to keep dropping a shoulder, to keep improvising or compromising, because you're not slowly developing her correctly. And that's why the walk is the most important and underestimated gait of all gaits. And if you haven't studied European classical dressage, I have, and I've been taught by my Portuguese instructor. In Europe, they don't care about the trot like we do. It's very different in the States, mostly because of our history with the ranch horse and the trot. Their most important gait is walk, and then that tells them how the horse is going to develop through the rest of their gaits, including the canter. Yeah, so she's very heavy on the forehand. And, oh, that makes me dizzy. And very nervous. And she's breathing heavy. So she can't handle the movement. She's not ready mentally or emotionally or physically for it yet. And again, I'm not saying that if you kept this up, that in time, obviously, she would get more comfortable. But it doesn't, just because she could maintain a more consistent, rhythmic, regular trot over time does not mean she's doing it correctly, Abby. And that's the key. So a lot of people start out like this and they figure, oh, I'll give her a month or weeks or months. Yeah, and eventually she'll maintain a consistent trot. But that doesn't mean she's using her body correctly. And so the art of lunging begins with you, teaching you the study and teaching you what correct movement looks like and teaching you how to develop it slowly and correctly, the building blocks. Okay. So every horse I've ever worked with that's been in a 90-day program of mine or longer, including Gaited, Arabians, Thoroughbreds, they come out of a 90-day program looking like a quarter horse, unless they're really young. And I mean under the age of 5, even under the age of 7, because that means that they haven't fully developed, their bones haven't fully developed, their spine hasn't fully developed, nor has their muscular structure fully developed. So any horse 7 or younger, and I know this mare is much older, she's 15, but she looks really young and she looks very slight. I wonder how tall she is. She looks very slight. But the point I'm making is, you know, Zor, when he came to me, he was 17.3 at the age of 4, my Frisian sport horse, and half the size, not half the height, but half the size. And he didn't, I mean, he's a Mack truck today. But the point I'm making is he's 12 in April. He didn't really fully develop and hit muscularly until 9. He's definitely a late bloomer all the way around. You couldn't even, if you put his original winter blanket on him, it's, I mean, Lovey wears it and it's tight on Lovey. So you can change all of this, but you got to know how to do it. You can't wing it. You can't just look at a couple of random videos and think that's all there is. There's so much more.
She's 15 too.
She's 15 too. She's not very big, about average.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get out of this video. And so, yep, she's clunky, the movement. We get that. And tripping all over the place and speeding up and slowing down. So let me go ahead and pop up this. Yes, I understand. Pop up this other video. And this time I will, now somebody's riding her, so I really want to talk about this. So Abby, there should be no posting trot on a gaited horse. And people, it's coming up now. The video is going to be coming up now. Thank you, Sabrina. So, okay, I don't teach rising trot or posting trot. And you guys, that's a big myth right there. The reason why you all are taught the rising or posting trot is because nobody knows how to teach you how to ride. That's number one. Number two, or actually number one, is your horses aren't balanced. How about that? So a lot of these lesson horses or even your own horses, they're not balanced. They're not equipped to handle you as a rider. And so to avoid hurting their backs, you're taught the rising or posting trot. And most of you aren't even taught how to do it correctly. So it should be taught where you rise from your knees and your core, not your feet, the stirrups. And you have to time it with the horse's movement, and you've got to develop a shitload of core strength so you don't slam down on that horse's back. So the rising trot should never be taught. Okay, first of all, the horse should be developed correctly to their fullest potential with balance, and you need to learn how to ride a sitting trot. When a horse is balanced, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier to ride and sit all of that movement. But then you have to be taught how to ride. The only time I'll do rising trot is as a professional trainer, not an instructor, a horse trainer. When I am developing a upper level horse, a schoolmaster in dressage, and I'm working on elasticity and cadence and more balance, more hind end strength, preparing everything for the passage or the canter pirouette or the piaffe, I will work on rising trot for a little while so that I can mostly do half halts and really help that horse gymnastically gain more strength and elasticity and impulsion. So as a trainer, yeah, there's a short period, a short window of time that I will put a saddle on and do the rising trot, and that's it. And so here's the common sense of it. It's only in dressage, only in the upper levels do you see any of their riders posting. You never see them post. They sit every movement that that schoolmaster, that horse, provides. I don't bring up reiners because they're all riding quarter horses and they've all developed those little jog trots and lopes. So anybody can ride that. And most of the time, when you see a reiner in a show and they've sped the horse up into a gallop and then slowed them down through their half halt into a lope and then a lead change, they're all standing in the stirrups when they ask them for a gallop. I mean, none of them can ride very well. Sorry. That's why they made saddles, guys, and that's why we torture our horses the way we do. And that's why I do what I do and painfully produce the Mastery membership program. So it takes the time, and we honor our horses and don't compromise them and ruin them. Okay, so this video, we're going to have someone riding your mare, and I'm going to play it right now. Here she comes around, you guys, and she's rising trot. That's not right. So first of all, the rising trot is for a 2-beat trot, okay? And you have to time it with a 2-beat trot. So unless your gaited horse is trotting, she's slamming down on her back, even though she's not slamming. And I don't see your gaited horse is gaiting. She is not trotting. So that is just wrong. Now, your gaited horse has more consistency, regularity, and rhythm to her gait now that she's got a rider pushing her and making her do it versus trying to do your liberty. Your horse is not ready for the liberty lunging that you're doing. She's just not ready mentally for it or physically. And if you're going to do liberty lunging, like I teach it in the confines of a round pen only in the beginning, and for many reasons. And you're going to work on straightness in the round pen, believe it or not, because you want to always ride your horse straight on a circle. When a horse goes straight on a circle, guys, that means their hind end is underneath of them, and they're lifting their forehand, and that allows the hind end is the weight bearing, so that captures all of the balance. The inside hind leg, when you're cantering, captures the balance. The outside hind leg is the leg that strikes off into the canter. And so as a horse is cantering, you want that inside hind leg to come well underneath the horse. That's their weight bearing balance leg. And so that, if the horse is strong and balanced, then that frees up the forehand. And that allows you to move the shoulder from the shoulder to the nose of your horse while you're cantering and keep your horse basically straight on a circle. And once you're straight on a circle, once you've achieved that, that means your movement's going to be so fluid and smooth and effortless. So straight is really important. So yeah. So let's take a look at Callan. I'm going to close out. I mean, Abby, if there's anything you want to add to the video with your horse being ridden, please do. I'm going to go ahead now and open up yesterday's video. When you guys look at this video, I just want you to know that I haven't ridden him in 2 years, and he hasn't been asked to do any of this in 2 years. So we're going to look at his lunging. Let me share my screen. And we're also going to look at me riding him. Okay, so I'll wait. I think Sabrina should be able to see that now. So we're both out of shape. I think for most of you guys, I haven't been schooling horses for 2 years, so including my own. in little bits and pieces. I try to get back into it. Sabrina and I, April 1st, we are committed, but we have to be committed to, because we are also starting a new course, and it is going to be the art of lunging, Pilates for horses. So it's going to be a new course. We have a bunch of new courses coming out, believe it or not. We're going to try and get 2 or 3 of them done before April 1st. And then we start filming again. Yay. And so we have to be committed, which means she's going to be bringing her 3-year-old over.
Yay.
Yeah. Yes. And so, yeah. All right. So okay. So this is 14-year-old Callan. He is a registered Rocky Mountain. He's gorgeous. The cool story of this is I started him when he was 4 years old back in Pennsylvania. And one of my apprentices and I did, Chelsea. And there's a video of him on YouTube from the farm in Pennsylvania. And his previous owner, Laura Lynn, is riding him. And it was a trail riding clinic of mine. So we were trail riding him in a rope halter, 4 years of age. He had been in a 2 or 3 month program with me. Minimum's always 3 months, but I 90 days. I'm not sure if he was 60 or 90 days. And here he is in this clinic going through all the obstacles, going through water, cantering for the first time, with riders bareback and a rope halter. And he was just an amazing young horse. She got him from a breeder in Kentucky. He was just gelded when he came to us at the age of 4, and never been started. Just wonderful, wonderful horse. And then I moved to Florida, and she contacted me years ago, like 5 years ago, that she just had too many horses. Callan had been sitting. His name was Smokey. It's part of his registered name. And so one of my students bought him, and he went back into retraining with me. And that was years ago. And so here we are. And so his owner today, who's one of my dear friends, we just casually ride here and there. I don't do much because I'm so busy producing. It's pretty nice when you have a foundation, and that's what the Mastery membership does. When you create a foundation with your horse, they never forget, their bodies don't forget either. You'll see him peter out at the canter. I ask for the canter with my seat, or I ask for it on the ground, and he gives it to me. By the way, I teach all the time, but I don't expect it to last more than a few strides because he's out of shape. So I appreciate that. And I don't want him struggling. You don't develop strength by running the piss out of your horses or trotting them. Again, they're going to compromise you guys. They can only do so much, right? It's like making me go run 2 miles. I couldn't do it. So what's going to happen to me to try to do that? Okay, so here we go. This is going to be our lunging online. And play. Here we go. It's a 6-minute video all together. I don't know why it's going so slow. Did I do something different, you guys? Huh. There we go. Just backed him up. I'm sending the shoulder out. So he's going to go straight. I teach all of this in my program. So he's going to go straight on his circle. Now he's a schoolmaster. He may be out of shape, but he can travel on this small circle straight. That's the point. He can do it. So he's straight. You don't see him leaning or dropping a shoulder. Now I'm asking for him he's going to try to canter to trot. So here's your 2-beat trot. And look how relaxed his top line is. Look how relaxed his tail is.
Freezing.
Is it freezing?
Yes, it's stopping, going, stop.
And now he's cantering, and then he's going to gait, and he gated. He went from a canter into a gait, and now he's gaiting. So let's back this up again. Sorry for the screen freezing. If anybody wants me to, I can upload this video of Callan on my YouTube page. So what I'm replaying it right now because I've got to train your eye. So what he's going to be trotting and gaiting. You have to be able to distinguish when he's doing either, and he's going to be cantering and gaiting, and you have to be able to distinguish. So I'm going to try and show you guys. I'll just either say trot, gait, canter, gait. Okay. When he's gaiting, I'll say gait. When he's trotting, I'll say trot. When he's cantering, I'll say he's cantering, because it's going to be quick. All right. So trotting, trotting, gaiting, trotting, trot, canter, gait. It's like a shuffle, gait, and walk. What a good boy. What a good boy. And now we're going to go the other way. Get the shoulder out. So he's just walking. He's thinking and offering. Again, he's very straight on the circle. He's not leaning. He's tracking up well. Okay, we're going to ask for the trot. 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 Trotting. Canter. 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 Gaiting. Gaiting. Gaiting, 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 gaiting. So what happens is he does a canter for like 3 strides, which is normal, and then he fizzles out. And so when you're out of shape or developing horses, because you don't have the strength or balance yet, Callan has a balance, he's just out of shape, he's going to peter out after 3 strides. And so he picks up the canter in both directions when I ask, and then he goes right into his shuffle, his gait again. And when you're developing a horse, you don't want to push more than 3 strides at a time. And then you'll go into, once they're ready for a collected canter, you'll ask them into a collected canter 3 strides. And then you immediately ask them back down to a nice, big, loose, relaxed trot. And you just keep working on the gymnastics, you know, working on the transitions and coming in and out of the gaits and in and out of the transitions of the gait, until eventually the horse can show you, yeah, I can go around three revolutions around you at a nice collected canter. So you got to, it takes time, just like it would for us. Okay.
Yeah, the video's freezing too much.
All right. So I'm going to get on them. So you guys have, sorry if the video is freezing too much. Again, it's our horrible satellite, but we'll upload this video and put it on YouTube. And I'm getting ready to get on him right now and mount him. So it's just really nice that he comes to pick me up. It almost pushes me off the mounting block to get me on. What a good boy. So I think what we'll do, Sabrina, is I can actually take this and narrate it. Yeah, what I'll do, guys, is I'll narrate and talk again about this, and then I'll upload it to YouTube. Yeah, I gotta train your eye.
Interesting.
Yeah, I read your mind. It doesn't surprise me. Yep. Okay, so we're just walking right now. Sorry that it's freezing up, guys. Annie's got a nice relaxed headset. And again, it doesn't matter what gaited horse or horse, period, every horse should relax. And that means they will relax their headset naturally, come into a nice, relaxed, natural frame. So I'm just asking him to gait. And he's gaiting right now. He's not trotting, he's gaiting. And I can feel the difference. So remember, he's got my big butt on him right now. So he's got extra weight on him, and he keeps gaiting. And he's also had a few minutes of a workout. So believe it or not, he's huffing and puffing. He's out of shape. So he's like, oh boy. So he's right now with me on his back. He's just gaiting. and I'm working on just warming him up, and I haven't ridden him in forever and keeping him straight. And he's staying very straight on that circle. And he picks up a canter. Nice. Nice canter, and back down to a halt. Really nice, and a back up. Really nice. Oh, beautiful. Really nice. What a good boy. He's such a workhorse. He's one of those that he just really wants to please you and loves to work with you. He's gaiting again now to the left. We changed direction. And trotting. Yep, now he's trotting. He's tired though. Now he's picking up the canter. There he goes. He picked up the correct lead. Yep, good. And then he's petering out. Oh, he's petering out. He's making me bounce all over the place because he's choppy. His left side's never really good. So you have no audio in this video, but we didn't include it, but I'm laughing because he's making me bounce all over the place because he was disunited there at the canter and he fell out and yeah, so now he's getting a little, he's gaiting again. Can you see it, Sabrina, at all? It's still choppy. Sorry, guys.
It's even choppy on Zoom.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, you're choppy in there too.
So, all right, so we're doing a little bit change of direction, a little bit of half passing. It's just nice.
Thunder.
No, that's Blue running around out there, Thunder. And he's picked up another canter. Yeah, so he's much better going to the right in this video than he is to the left, and that's normal for him. He's always had a hard time with his left leads, so forth and so on. The horses are playing outside of my window. It's running like crazy.
My window's going crazy too.
Oh, that's cute. All right, so that's the end of the video. We'll go ahead, like I said, and get this, you know, by next week. If you guys will just upload it, just look for it up on my YouTube. I will narrate over it so I can train your eye to what you're looking at. And before we wrap up, anybody have any questions?
Just sharing.
Yeah, I think I covered a lot of good points, especially with these myth busting questions and answers from the author from the Gaited Horse article on Horse and Rider. Mace, hold on for a second. I'm almost wrapping up. What?
I need to cough.
Oh, he needs to cough, my son. So, okay, that's all I got. I hope I was able to help you guys. And Abby, you know, I'm not trying to avoid or evade giving you directing art to developing horses movement. And it begins with training you in your eye and studying the movement and really paying attention to your horse and getting a baseline and starting from there so that you can track the progress or not. But you have to know what good movement looks like. So it has to start with you. And I teach all of this in my mastery membership program. Yes.
Becky wants to know, is there a difference embodiment for the gait?
Is there a difference, Becky, in the embodiment? Oh yeah, embodiment is when we embody the movement. So that's what it means. So if yes, it's just like teaching my horse to jump, teaching them to gait, teaching them to trot, canter, to do the Spanish walk. I embody what that movement feels like. So yes, absolutely. And that's when they bring up that, you know, they come with me in that movement. So yep, absolutely. Good question.
Do we embody the movement differently to ask for the gait?
Well, sure. Yes, Becky, a gaited horse's movement is different than a non-gaited. Yes. And gaited horses, you know, they're usually, it doesn't matter what breed of gaited horse, but they're always, you know, shuffling around on amongst their four legs. You know what I mean? There's not a real clear 2-beat, like with the non-gaited, it's 4-beat for the walk, 2-beat for the trot, and 3-beat for the canter. For a gaited horse, it's a 4-beat, 4-beat, and a 4-beat. So yeah, but it's a different type of 4-beat, you know, it's more of a walk than a faster gait. And I don't know all the specifics because they're different for each breed of gaited horse. And then there's even a different movement for the canter in a gait, if that makes sense. But yes, it is different. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. You can always email me with any questions. And awesome. So next week, oh my gosh, I forgot my list. So
Rebecca.
we have Rebecca next week. Oh, labeling horses. Our guest speaker next week is also a student of the Mastery membership. Rebecca, you were on here earlier. You might still be on the podcast.
Mhm.
So Rebecca is going to be our guest speaker next week and talk about the harm of labeling horses. And we're covering some of that today, you know, labeling or being misinformed about horses. There's so much misinformation. It's mind-blowing. So hopefully we'll clear up some more of that next week. Thank you. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. May you always be one with your horse. Please feel free to email me with any questions. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.